everyone, welcome to Moms Writers Club. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we are going to talk about pitch events, which I have lots and lots to say about. I feel like I'm teaching a class. So I'll just get
Jess
right to
should be teaching a class
it.
on this topic. She's really good at it.
Well, thank you. It is how I am connected with my agent. So I do have lots of opinions and things and advice. So a pitch event is, as far as I know, always held on Twitter. And the basic idea is that you post a pitch with certain hashtags related to the specific event in hopes that an agent will see it and request from it. Some pitch events include PitMad, DVPit, PitDark, SFFPit, DVPit, FaithPit, Pit. There are lots of them basically, and there are always new ones being added. There are a few like pretty exhaustive lists that you can find online. I will see if I can find one and post it, but they do change from year to year and the dates change. PitMad is probably the most popular one. So the general rules for a pitch event are that the likes are reserved just for the agents. When your writing friends and other people want to support you, they typically do that by retweeting or commenting, but each event is a little different. So I do recommend you read the specific rules for your particular event. It always includes hashtags. So PitMad uses the hashtag PitMad, PitDark uses PitDark, and then there are also other hashtags you need to use. So for me, because I write adult, I would always do hashtag A. And then you can also use hashtags to signify your genre, and that helps agents find it. So for example, if an agent is looking for a thriller, an adult thriller, they can use the hashtag for the event. They can use hashtag A and then hashtag, usually it's something like T. But again, these do change based off of the event. So look at the website for the event. I think PitDark versus PitMad has a different hashtag for mysteries, for example. So you want to make sure you have it for that specific event. Hours usually run from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. This can change a little bit, but that's typical. I would recommend, if you are not on the East Coast, or even honestly, if you are, that you schedule your pitches so that you don't have to worry about it day of. When I lived in Washington State, there was no way I was getting up at like 4 a.m. to post those. You used to have to use a third-party app to do that, but now you can actually just do it through the Twitter website, but you have to do it like on the computer website. You cannot do it from the app, at least using an iPhone, I cannot at this point. So these pitch contests are almost always for finished, polished, revised manuscripts. If you are participating, you should be ready to send your materials out same day or within a couple of days. So I mean, things happen. People definitely participate when maybe they shouldn't have, or they just want to do it. So they do, but typically it is for finished, polished manuscripts. The other rule to keep in mind is that different events have like different requirements as far as how many times a day you can pitch. So PitMad says to only pitch up to 3 times a day, whereas PitDark lets you, at least the last time I did it, when I got my agent, lets you post up to once an hour. So definitely check that out for each specific event. Okay, so now how to do a pitch event. The first thing you need to do, of course, is write your pitch, and I'll get more into detail with that. I would also recommend you get a lot of feedback on your pitch and make sure it makes sense and that everything you need is there, but we'll get into detail with that in a second. I would recommend using comp titles. A lot of people ask if they should bother doing that because it does take up precious space. I personally found that I always got way more attention for pitches that had comp titles. I would put them in caps at the top, and they're just more eye-catching. You know, you can take a look yourself and see if you think that it's helpful. And I know there are pitches every year that do well without comp titles, but it really gives the agent a quick snapshot of what your book is going to be like. And I think it's typically like if you look at the ones that do well, most of the time they are pitches that have comp titles. So you do want to try to increase your odds of people supporting you with your pitch. And the way you can do that, honestly, is to build your platform a little bit, which we'll be doing a separate episode on. The more people who see it and retweet it and comment on it, the more likely it is to trend on Twitter, and therefore the more likely an agent is to see it. It doesn't mean an agent won't see it if you don't have a lot of followers who are helping you out, but it definitely helps a lot. A lot of writers on Twitter will, in the days leading up to an event, post that they will support you if you just reply to their comment. You can certainly do that to get retweets. You can agree to swap retweets with other people who are participating. There are a lot of things you can do to increase the likelihood that an agent will see your post. I would also recommend posting early. There's a lot of discussion about, when should I post all of my pitches? I always say that first one should go up within the first 5 minutes of the event. It doesn't have to go up like right at 8 a.m., but like 8:03 or 8:04 is kind of what I did. And that's Eastern time, of course. I always felt like doing it right on the hour, if anything, might be like putting me right with a bunch of other people. So I'd try to wait till like right after that. And then the old school way of thinking with it was to like post pretty evenly throughout the day. So like 8 a.m., 12 p.m., 4 p.m. And I did do that originally. I personally found it better to post at like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and then around lunchtime in New York. And the reason I did that is because I believe, and I think statistics back this up, that more agents are present on Twitter pitch events in the morning. So I felt like I upped my chances by doing that, and then also posting around lunchtime. That said, people get likes at all times of day. I have definitely gotten pitches at like 6 p.m. or I'm sorry, likes from pitches at like 6 p.m. So it can happen. Use your best judgment. Do it however you feel like works best for you. There are a lot of blogs with advice on how to do these pitch events, and definitely read a bunch of them. And, if you agree with someone else, then by all means do that. Okay, so the next thing is how to write a pitch. So I'm going to do a brief overview and some of the things I think you should keep in mind, but I'm going to recommend that you do a Google search and find a bunch of different articles on it and read them, because I feel like different people explain things differently. And by doing that, you might find someone who you're like, oh, okay, I get it based off of the way they are describing it or the way they came at it. So
A lot of different resources put together, and then you sort of go,
yeah.
aha.
Yeah, exactly. I found like watching some YouTube videos and then reading different blogs to be helpful. And they also give different examples. So you might find something more specific to your genre. I'm not going to use the pitch I used for PitDark yet. Maybe after I've sold my book, I will do that. But I just wrote a quick one up. So again, I recommend comp titles. Typically 2 is good. Then the first part of the pitch should focus on your character and what they want most. The second part would be what the problem is and what stands in their way. So like the major conflict of the story, and then what they must do to get it and the stakes, like what happens if they fail, kind of like you're leaving it at, what's the word?
Cliffhanger?
Yeah, leaving it with the cliffhanger, like what happens. So you've got your character, you've got like your main conflict, what the problem is that stands in their way and what they're going to do about it, with ending on the stakes. But what you need to also do is, I know this is a lot to fit into 280 characters, is what is unique about your book? What is like your hook? What is the thing that is going to make it stand out? And try to work that into your pitch, because that will make a huge difference. It was a game changer for me when I first started, when I first started doing pitch events and got 0 requests to getting up to like 5, 6, 7, 8 requests at a pitch event. That was like the main thing. And then trying to make it sound good, which the first pitches you write probably won't sound good. And that's okay. It's like a rough draft. Mm-hmm. So what I really recommend you do is sit down and type out 10 different pitches and come at your book from various angles, including all of these things: the character, the problem, how they try to deal with it, and like what's at stake if they fail. And then take a day away from it, take 2 days away from it, and come back and revise all of those, and maybe combine a couple. Like if there are parts of a couple different ones you like, combine them and make it sound as good as you can. And then show it to other writers and have them help you, and have them help you get like your word count down. And you can use abbreviations, like use the little symbol for the word and when I use the word with, I do W and then a slash. Like people understand that. Don't put any extra spaces in. That'll all help you cut down on character length. But getting to my example, and I just threw this together really fast. So all Zoe has ever wanted is a bike, but her parents say they are dangerous. Zoe steals a friend's bike and has the time of her life, but in doing so risks the friendship and her parents' trust. She must return the bike before her friend or parents notice it's stolen. So you have your character, Zoe. She wants a bike, what the problem is and kind of what she does about it, but then like how she tries to solve it and ending on the stakes. Like if she doesn't return this bike, she might lose her friendship and her parents' trust. So that is a very basic example. You can find a ton more examples online. Or another thing I would recommend is if you are, say, doing PitMad, go on Twitter, do a search for the PitMad hashtag, and look up ones with the other hashtags that identify your own genre. So for me, I would look up adult thrillers and see which pitches did really well and look at what they are doing. Look at the format, look at how they are setting up their character and their plot and the stakes. The other format you can do is a list format. And I don't have an example of this to give you right now, but I got several likes from doing a list format. And that would be, I would do like a dash and then say something really intriguing about the character. And then the next line would be a dash and like the really cool part of the plot, the hook. And then after that, like the stakes. And that can get a lot of attention because it's eye-catching after scrolling through just like a list of miniature paragraphs.
The one thing that I can add to this whole thing is to be extremely, extremely specific. There are going to be a million pitches out there that talk about confronting her demons, or everything changes when, or before she runs out of time. And those phrases like that can describe many, many, many stories. My come from is, if it can describe any story besides yours, it's not specific enough.
Yeah, that's
Like,
great advice.
Get it down to where it can only be describing your story. And then you will find that you're using really interesting words. You'll get a lot of punch out of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some of that is where getting help from others comes in. Like write that pitch and let it be a little too long for your first draft, and then change your words around and get more specific and ask people where it's too vague, that sort of thing.
So pitch contests are not a must-do kind of thing. Many, many people have skipped pitch contests entirely and become successful authors. They're also not really contests. Contests sort of suggest that there are winners and losers. Like if you get some agent notice, then you're a winner. And if you don't, you're a loser. And it's not like that. They're not
Yeah,
contests.
and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your book either.
No. They're like, I think of them like a dating service. Sorry, like a dating service between authors and agents, like a kind of a whole bunch of personals ads, that agents are scanning through, like, ooh, where's my match? Like,
yeah,
where's my one and only love? And that's very personal and very individual. It's not a thing of better or worse.
Well, that, and so many people are doing them now. I saw one agent say that like hundreds of thousands of pitches were put up during PitMad. If it's totally possible an agent never saw your pitch, like it if they don't see it.
So another thing that I think, and Jess, you can tell me if you agree with this or not, is that I think pitch contests, well, some pitch contests are very specific to genre. And then there are the more general ones. And I want to say that they favor certain types of work over others, or just that certain types of work fits better within the confines of a pitch contest.
I think high concept work is easier to pitch well in 280 characters, something with a really strong hook. And some books are wonderful books, but it might not be as easy to describe it or get to its essence in 280 characters. And you brought up the different types of pitch contests and how some are specific to genre. And I would encourage everyone to try any pitch contest that you fit within. So PitMad is awesome. It is the big one, but it also means that there are more writers pitching, which makes it less likely for yours to be seen. I adore the smaller ones, like PitDark, where I matched with Kimberly, is focused more on anything that has like a dark element to it, whether it's a murder mystery or dark fantasy. So there may be fewer agents looking at it, but there are also fewer pitches going up, or SFFPit, or I know there's like a PBPit, for example. So definitely consider those smaller ones. I know some people avoid them because they think not as many people participate, but I find that those are the ones that actually are the most fun to participate in.
That makes sense. They're also the ones where agents come to them looking for that very specific thing that you are offering.
So. Yeah. So we were going to talk a little bit about like Sarah's experience with pitch contests versus my own. Now, I will start by telling you, remember, Sarah got an agent very quickly and sold her book in a 2-book deal very quickly, but Tell us your pitch story.
But I
Or
have never gotten a like in a pitch contest.
yeah, it's
Ever.
not an
I mean,
indication of how good your book is at all.
and I've actually only, let's say, participated in maybe four or five
Mhm.
times over the last several years. I have always been a little lukewarm about them because I just struggled to fit so I write women's fiction, contemporary fiction, and I struggled with writing the pitch until I met Jess because she's so good at it. And then she helped me. And then on this last one, I had an awesome pitch, but it still didn't get any likes.
Yeah, and a
Um,
lot of it is about visibility. If you have 1,000 followers or 100 followers, that is a very different likelihood that people will retweet a lot versus 10,000 followers. You know, it's just, and to some extent, it's kind of a popularity contest in that aspect, which is something people don't like about pitch events, and I understand that.
it's a good tool and it's worth doing, but you absolutely can find paths to success without it.
Yes.
One of the reasons I think it's really worth doing, even if you're like, wow, the odds are really long, why am I doing this? Is that being able to pitch your book in 280 characters is a really important skill.
It
And
definitely is.
it is going to continue to be an important skill way outside of the world of Twitter. You know,
Yeah.
if you go to a conference and you are having drinks at a bar with an agent and they ask you, hey, so you're an author, what's your book about? You know, you've got a few sentences to tell them.
Well, not only that, but like a lot of agents ask for a pitch in Query
Yeah.
Manager. And the pitch I used was my PitDark or PitMad pitch, you know, with maybe a couple lines added, but like it was basically that.
It can turn into the first sentence of your query letter. If you get a really punchy pitch, you can use it in there. And then if you get an agent, that agent is going to be pitching your book to editors. And if you have a really killer pitch already, they may go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
So it's to your advantage to try and write a really tight, short pitch for your book. And pitch
Yeah.
contests are a great way to practice that.
I know it's hard to like not get likes. I know it doesn't feel good. I get that because I've been there, but it really teaches you a lot. And it's also a great way to get involved with your writing community. It is, you know, people call it like pitch parties sometimes, and
Yeah,
people
I've
spend
been
all
much
day on
better.
Twitter and
Yeah.
they talk and they make new friends. It really can be a great thing. So there are other aspects to it than getting likes or
Totally.
not, you know.
I think going into pitch contests, you can certainly have some nerves and have some anxiety about putting yourself out there and sort of feel scared and stuff. And like the first one, I think I felt a little weird about putting myself out there, but I got over that pretty quickly because you know what's scary? Like cancer is scary. I am a
Yeah.
cancer survivor. Like that is scary. Pitch contests are not scary.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. There's no downside. Now that we've talked about what it feels like to not get likes, let's talk about what you do when you do get likes from agents.
Yes. First of all, it's super exciting every single time, no matter how many you get. Be warned, sometimes people do accidentally like hit the like button who are not agents. So make sure they are agents first. But you're really going to approach it like you would when you consider whether or not to query an agent. You need to make sure it's someone that you would want to work with. There are people who participate who are, they call themselves agents, but have never worked for an agency and have like just started their own agency with no experience in the publishing world. There are all kinds of people, just like with querying. So you need to be looking at Publishers Marketplace, checking the comments on Query Manager, Query Tracker. Check them out the same way you would anyone and make sure it's someone you want to send your work to and that you would want to work with, because you are not obligated to send them anything just because they gave you a like. There have been many times where I got likes and I was like, you seem like a nice person, but you've never worked at an agency and you started your own agency having never worked at one and you have no editorial background. Like, I'm sure you mean the best, but I don't want you to be my agent. Okay, so a couple other sources to help you figure out if you want to send your work to this agent. Victoria Strauss on Twitter. She has a lot of information on just basically people you might not want to work with. You can look at her Twitter, and I think she works for one of the websites that's like Writer Beware. And then the other place you can look is the Twitter profile YA Whispers. And so it's literally a Y and an A, Whispers. And this person, whoever they are, will be pretty honest about people they see out there who might not be agents you want to send your work to, whether it's something they've said or done, or if they are an agency that is new and the people involved have no background in publishing. You also might get likes from small presses, and it is up to
I
you.
actually did get a like from a small press.
There you go. And some of them are great. I know many writers who have published with small presses and are happy with that. But again, you don't have to send it if you don't want to. I personally
did not. It was a really cool little press, and I felt really good about it, but that's just not the route that I wanted to go.
Small presses are great. We have an interview coming up later this month with someone who's super happy with her small press, but it's a personal decision for you to make. Also, the small presses can also have red flags. Not all small presses are created equally. So do your research on them as well. So once you get that like, you want to go to that agent's profile. You've decided you want to send your work to them and you want to look on their profile. Usually the agent will post what they want you to send. So they'll say something like, hey, if you get a like from me during whatever pitch contest today, please send me your pitch and your query letter and your first 50 pages. And then that's what you will do. Usually it's via email. Sometimes they will have a separate query manager link for you. I will recommend when you send it that you paste the pitch at the top of the email above the query letter. Some people like to link it. You can do whatever you want. I like just having it there so they can read it.
What about in the subject line?
Yeah, well, in the subject line, I don't put my pitch in the subject line, but
what do you put in the subject line?
All right, so it depends on, some of the agents will tell you what they want you to put in the subject line. I usually do something like query and then a colon and then hashtag PitDark request, and then everything else I would usually put like my title. Right. But some do have a specific way they want to do it. But I do recommend mentioning the contest in the subject line. Agents often will read those queries before they will read like their general list. So you might be kind of jumping the line a little bit, so to say.
Right.
Not all of them do that, but some of them do.
Because a like in a pitch contest is not a guarantee of anything. It just means that you're going to rise a little further up this slush pile than you otherwise would.
So I recommend sending same day if you can. Like you should have everything ready to go, or at least within a couple of days. I do think one benefit of sending it pretty quick is I often got requests from the query and pages I sent them the same day. So like it would be up to a full request the same day as the contest because I sent it immediately. Whereas I found ones I sent a little later often took longer to get responses, probably just because that agent had more requests to wade through.
Mm-hmm. And it's in the top of their mind in the day of and the next day. It's kind of like fresh in their mind. So what if an agent that already has your query likes your pitch?
So Kimberly already had my query, and sometimes they'll specify like, forward it or just let me know. I actually just went ahead and resent it because what she asked for from PitDark was a little different than what her general query requirements were. You can kind of go either way on that.
What if an agent likes your pitch, but somebody at their agency already has your query? Like a different agent at their agency already has your query.
I always really struggled with this one. I've heard different things. I know some people will just reply and say like so-and-so, or they'll send them like a DM on Twitter and say so-and-so already has it. Mm-hmm. What do you want me to do? Sometimes they will say, if you get a rejection, send it then. It really varies based off the agency. I think the best thing to do is to ask the agent how to handle it.
Yeah. It's good not to agonize. I've had a couple of circumstances in my querying journey where I had to flat out say, hey, I don't know what the etiquette is around this, but here's the situation and, here you go.
Yeah. So usually you'll get a very polite response. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think that too. Yeah. I think that they appreciate that, you don't know how every situation is handled. They don't know how every situation is handled. They might look at it and go, I don't really know either. So, but then, but that's, just because something's complicated like that isn't a reason to, step back and do nothing.
Yeah, don't do nothing.
Don't do nothing.
The other thing I've heard of happening is getting two agents from the same agency, both giving you a like, and it's the same thing. Often they will say pick one, and send it. And then sometimes just let them know. And you can send the second one if you get a rejection on the first one. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and if you're a member of Moms Writers Club, you probably already know this, we do pitch practice a few times a year, usually coming up before each PitMad event, because often other smaller pitch events kind of are like coordinated with that on the calendar. And it's a time when one of the questions from our Wednesday night chat is post your pitch and give feedback, and everybody gives each other feedback. And I think people learn as much giving others feedback as they do on the feedback they get on their event. So watch out for that. If anybody has an event coming up and they want me to add that to one of our Wednesday night chats, just send me a message and let me know. I try to kind of keep track, but I have a lot going on in my life, so I'm not trying to miss any of them. Okay, so we have a few questions we are going to turn to next. Okay, so Michelle asked, in terms of limited characters and how much space they take up, how helpful are comp titles? I think they're really helpful. We've talked a little bit about this. I think they're eye-catching, and I think that they're like a quick snapshot of what your book is like. I don't think they're absolutely necessary. I do see pitches that are successful without them, but I do think they help. And I put them at the top, not at the bottom. I sometimes see them at the bottom. And I think that's like the first thing you want them to see.
You can also abbreviate certain titles,
Yes.
especially ones that are fairly popular.
Yeah.
Like Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you just say Eleanor Oliphant, they'll know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, exactly.
I was trying to comp to a nonfiction sort of self-help book by Mark Manson called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I could not figure out how how to abbreviate that. I think I did The Subtle Art of NGAF.
I like it. You can also comp to movies and TV shows.
Some people comp
Yeah,
to bands, you know,
Yeah,
like
that's a great idea.
what was the one that I saw? So I saw someone comp to Mumford and Sons, which I thought was great. Like Mumford and Sons meets whatever. And like that really gives you a feel like what's the vibe of this.
Yeah. You can also use an author. Like if the author has a lot of works that you feel like are similar. Our next question is from Kathleen, and she would like insight on how live pitching differs from these contests. And I think live pitching is its own event. I don't think either of us have ever done that. But I can tell you, I mean, it's pretty different. This is you posting a pitch and agents have the opportunity to give you a like, whereas with a live pitch event, you typically are one-on-one with an agent, either at a desk or via a Zoom meeting, and you're having more of a conversation. The biggest tips I have heard for live pitching is to try to like calm down as much as possible, which I imagine must be really hard. And to not just read your query letter to them, but make it a conversation. And remember that they're humans and they're probably sitting down with 100 different writers that day. So say hi and be nice and ask them how they're doing.
And leave time in your, however long you have, in your 10 minutes or whatever it is you have, leave time to ask them questions and to let them ask you questions.
Yeah.
I do think a live pitch should still be pretty short. Like your pitch, if you've got a 10-minute session, your pitch should be like 2 minutes.
Yeah, max.
And leave the rest of the time to, you know, because the agent may be like, oh, tell me more about this or tell me more about that. Or the agent may be like, you know, I'm really sorry, I think that's not for me. But then you've still got 8 minutes to ask them questions about the publishing industry or the agenting world or just other things that would be really of use to you.
I've heard of some live pitch sessions that are as short as like 4 minutes, which seems okay. Side note, everybody, I once did speed dating and it was one of the most fascinating and emotionally exhausting things I have ever done. So, and I know like being an agent and doing like live pitches is not the same as speed dating, but it seems really similar. And I just cannot imagine doing that for 2 hours, much less all day, because I think I did it for an hour and was like, this was awful. I now have fodder for like 5 books, but this was
right. So I went to a really small kind of boutique conference once, and they did the best. And I hope that other like writers events will do this. This was the best activity. So they set up 2 rings of chairs facing them. So there was like an inner circle and an outer circle, like half and half facing one another. So everybody sat on the inner circle and the rest of us sat on the outer circle. And we would pitch the person we were speaking to, like, and they'd have a timer. It was like a minute or 2. And then everybody on the outer circle would get up and move down one.
Those musical chairs.
And pitch the next person. And you wound up going through your pitch about 15, 20 times. And by the time I got to the end, and this was going back and forth, And by the time I got to the end, I was really comfortable going through my pitch.
What a cool
And
idea.
B, it had changed some. I had realized like there's certain words that just didn't feel right, or I had tightened it up, like just spontaneously, just having to say it to somebody's face 15 times. It was a great activity.
That sounds awful and also wonderful.
It was fun though. Like everybody was laughing and, it was like mutually awkward and kind of fun.
For speed dating, we could drink and that helped.
Yeah, we
But
may
that
have
sounds
we may have had a glass of wine at that point. I'm not sure.
That would be nice. So Erin says, what accounts, hashtags should you follow to know when they are happening? And honestly, I don't know.
Contests are happening.
Yeah, so the best thing I've ever done is just to do a Google search for Twitter pitch events. And and if you look on a couple different ones, like a couple different search results, you usually will find one that is up to date. Occasionally, it will also be a tweet that gets like retweeted over and over on Twitter. So just being present, or you could even, ask the writing community on Twitter, does anybody have an exhaustive list? And, but yeah, it is really hard. I have certainly found out about events because I see that they're happening right in front of me and just joined in.
Yeah.
I'll try to find a link to
some
like a
to
list.
have a pitch ready. Good
Yeah.
reason to go ahead and write your pitch. Don't wait for PitMad or whatever.
And that's the thing, like you have to change hashtags when you do other events, but if you do PitMad, then you're also ready for PitDark, you just move your pitch over and you can use the same one. Oh, I didn't mention this earlier, but I do recommend coming up with at least 2 or 3 finalized different pitches and use the one that you think is strongest first. If you don't get any likes, you can try your other one next. And then whichever one you think is stronger is the one that you can like do your third post with. And also make sure you pin your favorite one to your profile so that when someone wants to retweet it, they don't have to scroll through your 50 retweets of someone else's pitches to find it. Make it really easy for them. I've also heard agents sometimes, if they're interested, they'll go to your profile and like read another pitch that you've potentially like posted there. So I think that can be helpful. Diane asks, how long is an appropriate amount of time to wait before submitting your materials after a like? Not because a manuscript isn't done, but because you're researching. She adds a cough to this, so I'm very suspicious. But so you should be ready to go. It's just like any type of querying, but I would recommend sending in the next few days, up to a week at the longest, maybe. I have heard agents say that, if for some reason you're not ready, then send it when it's ready. But at some point it definitely, if it's been 2 months since an event, that I would say that's not putting your best foot forward.
It's also not probably going to bump you up the slush pile as much because, that kind of front of mind attention from the pitch contest will have passed.
Janie asks, how long should you leave the pitch up after the event? I would say at least a few days. I have gotten likes the day after. I've heard of people getting likes a couple days after. The agent just didn't have time to, be there day of, or was like, oh, maybe I want something from this genre, and goes through them at a later time. So definitely a little while. Diane asks, are there any secrets to helping your pitch get seen, like time you tweet, etc.? So I mentioned I like to post early. Also having the keys are having a decent following, but being engaged with them. So if you have 5,000 followers, but you're never on Twitter, so nobody's ever seeing your stuff and liking it or commenting on it, then you are not going to have like a high, what's the word? A high engagement. Mm-hmm. So those 2 things will definitely help you. Okay, well, I think that's everything we have for you on pitch events. I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. Drop them below as comments or post them on Twitter or send me a message. Please give us a like here on the channel. It really helps us reach other writers and moms. And we'd love it if you subscribe. And if you hit the little bell, YouTube, when you go to YouTube, we'll do like a little drop down to let you know we have a new episode. But thank you so much for joining us. Like I said before, we have our Wednesday night chats where we do practice pitches, and those are every other Wednesday. You can find out when the next one is by going to my pinned post on Twitter. I'm at author Jess Payne.
And I'm at Sarah Reed Author.
And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.